coming from the Economic Institute. As you may perhaps know, the Commission is at the moment in the process of preparing a proposal for a common European contract law. Member states and institutions ask our opinions, so we will try to give an economic point of view about the subject, as the discussion so far has been mainly political.
Good morning, everyone. We can start saying what are scope rules. In a simple way, that are rules that define the scope of applicability of a legislation. In particular, we can identify 3 types of scope. The first and most important for our talk is the personal scope. This regards the question of which actors proposed legislation would apply to. We have three main actors in the economical scenario: large companies, small and medium-sized enterprises, and consumers. The personal scopes issue regards the decision of which of these 3 actors to include. The other 2 are material and territorial scopes. The material scopes answer to the question of which areas of law the legislation aims to regulate. For example, should we harmonize only the contractual liability or also the non-contractual one? Last but not least, there is the territorial scope. We have to decide where we want to apply this legislation. Another example, just for cross-border contacts or also for domestic situation. To summarize, 3 are the fundamental questions: who, what, and where. I pass now the word to my colleague.
Thank you. So why are exactly the scope rules so important? In order to achieve maximum economic efficiency, we must first, regarding the material scope, of course, establish which areas of law should in fact be included in the instrument. Secondly, the personal scope. This is important as all the choices that you make in life are regulated by something that is called the opportunity cost. The opportunity cost means that when you choose one particular alternative, you automatically lose all of the other benefits that could have been come to you from the other possible alternatives. So, in order to find the option that maximizes benefits and minimizes cost, we must identify the parties that the proposed legislations would apply to. Thank you.
So, in this second section, we will introduce you to some economic theories. My colleague will start with the first one.
So the first theory that we're going to present you with is the regulatory competition theory. This theory actually opposes the idea of harmonizing the contract law within the European Union. It presumes that the lawmakers in governments are in fact in constant competition with each other, striving towards offering the best and most efficient law. And this is done in order to attract businesses and other economic actors into their jurisdiction. According to the theory, actors are in fact able to move between different legal systems so as to find the most fitting one for their purposes. In contract law, this can be made, for example, by the choice of law clause in the contract. Harmonizing contract law within the European Union would mean an end to this development towards the most efficient and competitive law.
I don't agree with you. I think that the economic theories are based on a wrong assumption, that is, that the parties would behave rationally. Indeed, in real life, the homo economicus doesn't exist. Thus, if our institute wants really to provide an objective analysis of the effects of different grades of harmonization, we should refer as possible not only to the economic theories, but also to the behavioral analysis, by which we can distinguish several psychological phenomena. The first is the status quo bias. Usually, people refer to a reference point known to them, thus more like to opt for default rules they already know. The second is that consumers and small enterprises don't calculate costs and benefits of alternative ways, so they make their decision based by past cases. In other words, people are lazy. So, one solution that I think can be considered in our discussion is the theory that creates an alternative status quo. That is, default rules based upon what the fewest number of parties have to contract around to achieve efficient agreements in specific contingent circumstances, and thus we could provide an optional default regime from cross-border contracts.
Well, that is actually a very interesting argument. We will now take a small break and consider these theories. So, welcome back, and we will continue with our economic theories. The third one is actually another theory that also supports harmonizing the contract law within the European Union. This is the theory of transaction costs. It presumes that less legal diversity would also mean less transaction costs for businesses in contract law related issues. These costs can relate to money, time, or just pure inconvenience. When businesses make decisions, they must consider, for example, the cost of negotiating the terms of the contract, drawing up the contract itself, and also investigating the contract laws of different countries. Even in business-to-business transactions, these costs can play a significant role, and they might deter cross-border trade. This is the same case in business-to-consumer contracts. They are also affected by the transaction cost. When a business wants to provide services or goods in another member state, they might be faced with higher standards of consumer protection, and these higher standards might lead to higher costs for the business. And thus, harmonizing would decrease these costs.
I would like to stress an aspect of this theory. In reality, the transaction costs aren't the same for all the actors. Indeed, the big companies, thanks to their bargaining power and their efficient organization, are able to neutralize that cost. On the other side, the costs for other subjects who represent the 99% of businesses in Europe are burdensome. I'm talking about the small, medium-sized enterprises. The small businesses have to agree to apply the laws of the larger companies, bearing the cost of finding out that content. Other situation is when they have to negotiate with another small enterprise about the applicable law on the contract, a fact that constitutes an obstacle to the cross-border trades. Finally, those barriers may jeopardize the competition between small and medium-sized enterprises and major companies. A small company is much more likely to refrain from entering a foreign market than a larger competitor.
I actually completely agree with you on this point. The small and medium-sized enterprises, they actually really are the backbone of the European economy. They create the majority of the new jobs, and they also contribute more than half of the total added value created by businesses in the Union. So in order to ensure economic growth and efficiency, which I'm sure we all want, the needs of the small and medium-sized enterprises must be considered when defining scope rules of the proposed legislation.
In conclusion, I want to stress that our contribution cannot provide an absolute measuration with benefits and costs of legal harmonization, but this will not preclude us from investing the numbers of diversity or unity.
We are definitely looking forward to negotiating with you in the upcoming weeks. Thank you and bye-bye from the Economic Institute.